feel confidently saying that most women who are diagnosed with Graves have had some type of epinephrine exposure.
Over time, you begin to be disconnected from this body that they tell you is attacking you, right? But then when I'm telling you, I fell back in love with my body because I saw it fighting. The nurse was like, you took out chunks of your skin right there, like chunks out. And I thought, how is this body that is supposedly not working gonna fix this?
Yes.
And seeing it slowly just like heal that wound, I'm just in amazement. This body's not broken.
Like I was saying, like rainbows and butterflies, that childlike view of the world was just crumbling a little bit for me, you know?
I'm getting emotional. Oh God, I did not expect this.
Healing Graves holistically, there's not much out there at all. We're kind of in this unknown territory. So we're inviting you guys into our personal journey. We may not know all the answer, but guess what? We're going to try to figure it out as much as we can.
Hello, my name is Meron and I'm based in the UK and I'm the founder of Loving Me Kindly.
And my name is Priscilla and I'm based in the United States and I am the founder of Healing Unapologetically.
Together we are co-hosting our podcast, Thyroid Sisters Navigate Graves' Disease. Over the last few years, since being diagnosed with Graves' disease, we have fought to gain our lives back and are both living medication-free.
We are not medical experts. However, through our experience of dealing with this disease, we have learned so much and want to share our journey of healing and self-discovery.
We have come to realize that trusting our instincts and intuition has helped us lead healthier lives, and our goal with these podcasts is to empower and inspire you. Yeah.
We're on.
Technology. So, how are you?
I feel like there's always something going on, isn't there? Like,
what, technology? Well, yeah.
Well, no, just like life. Just like
life.
Like when we were talking on WhatsApp and you were just like, oh, I feel like you haven't been home, not displaced, but yeah, I've been bouncing around so much like since Easter because we were out of town. And then when we came back in, I had family that was from out of town. They were in town. And then as soon as they left, my AC unit broke down. So then we went with my parents for a week and then I'm finally back in. But yeah, it just, I was thinking about like the word of the week. And I was
thinking about the word of the week. Okay.
What you were?
Oh, I was going to ask you anyway. Oh yeah, that happens.
Yeah, because you always ask me.
I do. Yeah. You
so I was trying to be prepared. I was like, if Miriam's going to ask me, I wonder what.
Let me check. What's your word?
Yeah. Like what would be my word? And I came up with flexible. I feel like the word for this week was just to be extremely flexible. Like, you know, there wasn't any routine. There wasn't any like rules, just because when you're not at home, you have to just go with the flow a lot. So, you know, like we ate out a little more than usual because it was hard to cook at home and plan meals that way. But that was my week, just being flexible, right? That's why we have those days, you know.
Did it feel okay? Being flexible, did it feel okay for you?
Yeah. Yes, because I realized then I would just feel a lot of stress, right? Like if I try to hold on to that routine that I have at home while I'm displaced, it's just way more stressful because you're working around other people and it just, you know, it just felt more stress than to have to do that.
I feel like your word is displaced, but you found flexibility in that displacement. Right. That's what I think.
You're right. I always say displaced. Like every single time I'm not at home, I'm like, I feel so displaced. I'm always like.
Before you even said the word displaced, I was thinking displaced. And then when you said it, I was like, I think that's more, but then being flexible in it is how you cope.
Yeah. Yeah, it's how I coped. Yeah, you're right.
I think that's very displacing, definitely. Especially because you've got Ryland and you've got your routine. You usually do your pump. And I can imagine that when you have a child, you can't really, to be displaced is not a nice feeling. I can imagine that it throws you off. But then
it's really challenging. Not that it's impossible, but it's just challenging. And I think because we went from like week to week to week of just like having no real set schedule and routine.
Exactly.
And little kids love routines. Like that's the best. I've noticed Rylan is always his best when he has a routine. He already knows what to expect. So when you just kind of have this free for all and it's just like go with the flow, they just get a little more cranky, or they like skip naps and then they go to sleep really early and then they wake up like right now he's starting to wake up early, which is fine, but
Does that mean you wake up early?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh man, but you did it. You made it through, and
I
hopefully
know.
you could like settle again. Back
Yeah.
to
Oh yeah.
Rusa. Back to Rusa. Back to
Yeah.
Yay.
How have you been?
I've been good. I would say my word, if I was doing a mood check, I've been quite balanced. Surprise. You know me, I'm always like overwhelmed or stressed out and just, yeah. But I've been balanced. A, because I had a week off work, so I'm sure that has a lot to do with it. And B, because I've just spent a lot of time strengthening my relationship with God, like just being in prayer and not I usually do that anyway. I start my mornings with prayer, but like stronger. I don't know how to explain it. Just like more, there was just more strength to it this time, and yeah, so that helped me to just
intention. Would you say like
more intention? Yeah, more intentional. And just that made me calmer because it was like it helps you to stop burdening yourself and then trusting, you know. So it helped me focus on things. So had a more balanced week. So I hope, and I was more consistent with things and just I had a center, if that makes sense. I have a center. Of course, God's my center, but it's easy to get distracted with the world and then forget that and then just be in your head. So I was more in my heart space. That's what I mean. I was more in my heart space. So
that makes a lot of sense, actually. The being centered part.
Yeah.
Because I definitely feel like that I would describe my spiritual time or my faith like that. Like it just helps me stay so centered, regardless of everything, you know. It's just like it reminds you like to come back to this like point, and you just have a better perspective on things, or you're reminded so much of like, for me, like more important, meaningful things to be thankful for, or just, I don't know. It just helps me have more perspective.
More perspective, exactly. Yeah, then you can handle things better. So it's been all right. Let's see if I can continue it next week when I'm back at work. So that'll be a test. So yeah, but it's nice to feel rested and just balanced. Next week,
that's funny.
I might have a different answer for you, but I don't know for now.
Well, it's interesting because like I was making a mental note with our voice notes. I was like, Marilyn sounds really good right now. It's so interesting how I'm so sensitive to your voice. Or maybe in general, maybe I'm like that. I think because as a child and even now, I've always been very hyper vigilant, you know, with my surroundings and people and reading people. But not that I'm reading you, but you just pick up on these cues, like, oh, their tone sound, you know, you can tell when someone sounds angry, upset, sad, frustrated. But I can tell in your voice it sounded more just more relaxed, more ready to go. Yeah, it was like I think Miriam is feeling better.
Oh, that's so good. So you're my gauge. Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like, not that it's always gonna be right, but I did notice your voice had energy, and that's interesting that you say that the week off helped, you know, and then that I really do think that, because I feel like just the little bit that we're interacting, like I can tell when you have that work load on you and when you don't. Like there's
So next week will be a test. Let's see.
Hopefully that's not building up next week to be like a bad thing, you know, but
no, it's a challenge. Let's see how I navigate it. Let's see how I navigate it. But resting when you have an autoimmune is just everything. It's just,
I know,
so important. It's
I
just so
know.
important. No space for stress. No. No
Yeah.
space for that. Yeah. You just,
But I can't remember which episode it was, but and I've been meaning to share that clip where you mentioned how with an autoimmune disease, you just cannot afford any additional stress.
that's
Like
all I
you
keep thinking.
literally can't. And I think that that's a really good way of just explaining things maybe to someone who doesn't know. Actually, we were talking about doing this episode of how you can tell others. I don't know how we worded it, but like advocating yourself to basically like family members, friends, coworkers on
Oh, we want to do an
living with an
episode on it.
autoimmune condition. Yeah, we were
How
talking
to
about
help
that
others help you, sort of thing, like how to say your needs so that they can help you rather than I don't know. Yeah, I know it's a tricky one.
it's tricky because we've always mentioned like getting side-eyed, like people really
Yeah.
not taking you as serious, or we've had experiences like that. But rest is one of those things to me that when I remember when I was feeling my worst, like I just felt like I couldn't get enough of it.
Yeah.
Like I just couldn't get enough of it. And I think that's one of those things that people can't relate because they
Sounds lazy.
it sounds lazy. Yeah.
That's so
But
true.
but I kind of think that maybe at least that's what I'm hearing from you. Like it was so good just to rest, and I think from a lot of people why extra like regular life events or just life responsibilities just can be extra taxing because you're already coming from a place of like it's like you can't you just always are looking for rest. I don't know, at least that was for me, but
I think though my leg still hasn't healed, so I still have to like lie down for long periods and allow it to just heal. I can't walk around and pace or do anything like that, so it's forced me to rest. It's been like over a month now where it's like this new rhythm. I'm like, okay, so I don't want to think, and it's helped take some pressure off with work because I know I've got this leg issue, so I can't go in as often. I have to work from home, so that's helped me find some balance. But then I need to learn to, after my leg heals, I still need to advocate for myself without having a broken leg. It shouldn't be the broken leg, an injury that is sort of speaking up for me. I need to do it for myself, but it has taught me a lot. It has taught me a lot that you just have to be patient with your body. Right now, my leg needs to heal. And because it's more visual, I can see like the scars have not the scars, but the wound has healed up. I can see my body. I can see it. So I can see it getting better. But with an invisible illness, you can't see it. So you don't know if it's getting better or not. But you just have to trust and be patient with your body and just give it everything it needs. So it's taught me a lot, this cycling accident. Interesting. Weird, isn't it?
I know.
Yeah.
That's good insight. Like the outside scab that we all see when we are healing from an injury lets if you're getting worse or if it's not getting worse, or I mean, what am I trying to say, like if it's getting better or if it's staying the same or getting worse, like you can see it. But when you're dealing with an autoimmune disease, that wound is internal and you just can't tell what stage it's at.
But you know what, it brought me into alignment. Another reason why I felt balanced, because I was connecting back again with my body for so long. When you have an autoimmune, I think I've said it in previous podcasts, you are disconnected from your body because it's not working. You're always fatigued. Why can't I have energy? You're always you have that brain fog. Why can't my mind remember things? Why am I always like this? And why is my body doing that? So over time you begin to be disconnected from this body that they tell you is attacking you. Right? And it's that constant thing of this body is attacking me. But then when I'm telling you, I fell back in love with my body because I saw it fighting to like the wound, like it was gaping holes. The woman, the nurse was like, you took out chunks of your skin right there, like chunks out. And I thought, how is this body that is supposedly not working gonna fix this? And seeing it slowly just like heal that wound, and then just over time, I'm just in amazement. This body's not broken. It's not broken. It is doing its best as long as I give it what it needs. And guess what else, Priscilla? Oh, I was going to send you a voice note. I noticed that if I didn't eat right, like let's say I ate an inflammatory food, I would feel it right there on the knee. If I ate my green smoothie, if I drank, my green smoothies and I just kept it clean, I felt good. I woke up feeling good. I said to my husband, oh, my leg's feeling really good today. But on those days, and Monday, I was out with my brother and his wife and his baby, and I accidentally drank a chai latte, and they put syrup in it. I just thought they were going to put tea bag. I didn't think they were going to put sugar. You know, I avoid sugar. Yeah. So I sipped it and I thought, oh no, my body's going to react to this. And it did. It actually did. I felt cranky the next day. I felt emotional, like it was affecting me and inflamed at the same time. So I was like, I feel it on the knee because that's the part that hasn't healed yet. You know, it's still in the process of healing. So it needs all the right things. And if it signals to me, dee 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 dee. No. So isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
I need to give it everything. I just give it everything from morning till evening. This is it's my knee, but it's my body, if that makes sense. It's my knee, but it's my whole body that is getting because like we said, I can't afford to go backwards. I can't afford to feel I don't want to feel the pain. I don't want to feel inflamed. I want to heal. But it's so interesting. Give it what
That's so funny because you could, you're listening to your body so you can give it what you need. And it's almost like that injury is making you more sensitive to it. But I remember when I was going through all of my lifestyle changes, diet changes, everything, I started to become very sensitive to like sugar. All of a sudden I was just like, I can feel the impact. And I remember feeling almost crazy when I would like try to explain it to like my mom or someone. I was like, this sounds weird, but I would be like, I can tell, like I can feel the difference.
Dude.
And it feels very odd because you kind of, someone mentioned this in one of our messages that we got, but they were maybe I might just read a little bit. I'll keep her anonymous, but she mentioned something to me that is so true, is that you gaslight yourself a lot.
That rang deep.
Right? And she's someone that
that's so
is
true.
Listening to our podcast. She was so sweet to send us a message. And I'm going to keep her anonymous, but I do want to share this one part because she mentioned that I feel though through my diagnosis, I experienced a lot of self-gaslighting, and hearing others experiencing the same or similar things feels really validating.
Right. I think we know our next episode is going to be about.
And this is someone who was diagnosed a few months ago, but she's connecting the dots and she's understanding that she's probably had 2 years of undiagnosed thyroid issues. Isn't that crazy? How like you can, when you start doing these health histories, right? Yes. That what you and I are doing, you can literally start to pinpoint that time in your life where you started to get symptoms. But I remember feeling a lot of gaslighting, not in just my Graves, when I had undiagnosed Graves disease or when I was told that I had Graves disease. I just gaslighted sometimes myself on the healing process, like because it's really unknown territory. So I felt like when you are your own advocate and you are your own support and everything, you kind of have, or at least for me, I had the tendency to want to double guess myself. Like, is this really true? Am I really feeling this? I sound crazy saying how, consuming gluten during that time was just like, I can feel the joint pain almost immediately within 48 hours of consuming it. My joints were hurting so bad. And all these little things, these little signs that your body's telling you, but you almost can't believe it because that's not the message that we hear in, mainstream medicine and hospital and with your doctors. You don't hear that,
No, because it's not scientifically proven. So,
yeah, I mean,
you know.
yeah, it's a very interesting experience when you're being diagnosed and healing. I think there is a lot of self-doubt or double guessing or just gaslighting that is occurring. But yeah,
So
you
on top
have
of your
to.
yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, so on top of our own gaslighting, when other people sort of side eye us, then it just makes
Ugh,
it compounds it all. So you
can
don't
you
even have
imagine?
yourself to trust in a way, because you're like, am I? I'm
Yeah.
not going crazy, and just makes you
Oh,
feel
yeah.
even worse.
I think that's why a lot of people step away from integrative or holistic treatments, because not only are you maybe struggling with understanding if this will work, or maybe you're just really, really hoping it will work, and you're dealing with your own emotions and your own feelings, but then to have somebody else project their own doubt on you as well, it's just like, it really is discouraging. That's why, yeah, social media can be a tricky place to navigate with when you have an
Yeah,
autoimmune disease. Because I don't know if you want to talk about this today
I don't
on our.
know. I don't know if I want to talk about.
Because
Where do I
I
begin? Because
I'll let you take.
you put it in a sentence there when you said we are doing health histories. So it's not about pinpointing things that you've done in the past to blame yourself. So it was just a post saying, I saw a post on social media saying, for all those people that try to make me feel like it's my fault that I'm ill, a middle finger my middle finger to you. And I
Yeah.
mean, it's not at us directly, but we do talk a lot about like joining the
Self-healing.
dots, self-healing, advocating, your health is in your hands, and look back, what are the things that you have done, not to you see, it's not to say that it's your fault, but it's to not do them anymore so that you can get better. Basically, are there any habits that you used to do? And that's why we did what emotional things did you used to do as a child, what things did you go through, and by pinpointing those things and joining the dots and looking back, you can now go, I don't want to do that anymore. From now on, I'm going to treat myself this way. What physical things happen to you? And now in this episode, we're going to talk about the chemical stressors, and we're going to go through a timeline. But I hope it's not to make anybody feel that we're trying to say it's your fault or things happen in the past and that's why this happened to you. But it's just, I don't know, what would you say to that?
I feel like this is something that I've always seen posts like that on Instagram, even like 5 years ago, since I first joined. Yeah. And specifically, I know that post was like I'm not sure what
it was a
diagnosis.
Chronic illness. It was some kind of chronic illness.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I know just from within the thyroid community, especially with at that time with the Graves, I felt like most of the support group that was there was to support, like, this sucks, my thyroid hates me, my body hates me, and it was more of that type of language and support. And I completely understood, because that's how I felt as well. But instead of taking I just feel like people are allowed to feel like that. And if they want to express themselves, they're allowed to express themselves like that. That doesn't mean that if I choose to not identify with those sentiments, that it makes them wrong, or it makes me right, or I'm right, or I'm wrong and they're right. I don't see that at all. I really do think it's just a personal decision. And what we're sharing, it's for whoever wants to hear about our experience. I'm not going around saying that my message is just about me finding my own way and following the desires of my heart, the convictions, relying on my faith, and doing whatever research that I could. And all of that led me to healing. So it's a very tricky
It is
I feel like,
tricky.
what
It's
am I
very
trying to say?
sensitive. Very sensitive.
It's very
area.
sensitive because I've gotten some how do I want to say this? I don't want to say backlash, but I've had some pretty negative tone messages from some people that felt insulted by my healing journey because
got it.
Yeah.
Hence,
that's
healing unapologetically makes sense. Yeah.
And it's funny because for the beginning, when I first opened my Instagram account, I just had a very generic name. It was like my age, because I was 33. It was 33 Graves' disease, because I was just diagnosed at the age of 33, and that account was just for Graves' disease related, post and stuff like that. So it was a very generic name, and I was just connecting with other people, other women and men who had Graves' disease. We were sharing our experiences, our symptoms. I remember we were going back and forth, like, gosh, my eye, are really sensitive, and someone would recommend something. It was just kind of like that type of support. But then I remember sharing like a lot of disappointment that my endocrinologist wanted to do the radioactive iodine treatment. And then all of a sudden my posts were changing. Like, it was like, I don't want this treatment. I'm really scared, and it's happening way too fast. Like, I feel like there's more than I can do just for my overall health before I'm removing it. So my conversations started to change, because those weren't conversations that other women were having. So I kind of just went off that path and started to do my own thing. And then all of a sudden I'm like talking about remission, and I'm sharing a little bit of what I'm learning and hearing. And then, so I felt like once that happened, and then I healed naturally, and then I shared that, then I was getting more messages of, well, how did that happen? Or what are the case studies that you used? It was just very confrontational. I had a lot more confrontational messages. And in 2020, that's when I changed my name to Healing Unapologetically, because you don't owe anybody a reason for you making the best decisions that you did for yourself, and that you're happy for those decisions that you made. You are reaching your goals. That you don't owe anyone an explanation. You don't have to apologize for that. And that's when I was just like, I'm not a confrontational person, and I would never get into these disputes. I would just say, this is the resources that I used. I know there's not a lot of case studies out there, but this is what I based my healing on. Here you go. Good luck. And just kind of walked away. But I realized, like, why do I have to defend myself?
That's so true, because it's so difficult to say it, because I was thinking of that today. I have this I don't know if it's a bad habit. I need to space it out, but I've been really obsessed. And this is a topic we could talk about another time, heavy topic. And it's to do with weight and thyroid issues. So I've struggled with my weight for the last 9 years, and I've been really trying to figure that one out. And I'm, finding different things, insulin resistance, low glycemic food, AIP diet, whatever, lots of things.
Yeah.
And it doesn't move. No matter what I do, the scale doesn't move. It goes up, it rarely goes down. It does incrementally on its own. And today,
I can totally relate to that.
I'm telling you, I've been doing some routines, and I've added some routines. I've been doing some research, adding a few things. So I'm doing multi self-care things. Let's just say a number of self-care things. Went on the scales today. I was like, no, that can't be right. Step back off, step back on. I was like that. I'm like, no. 3 times. It went down.
Wow.
I was like, what part of my self-care impacted that? And then I thought, it's so hard if I wanted to tell somebody, oh my gosh, this is what's helped. If somebody asked me, how did you lose some weight?
Yeah.
It would be hard to tell them, because it's like, well, I did this, and I also did this, and I also did this, and I also did this, and this.
Yeah.
Because it's so multi-dimensional to healing Graves or thyroid issues or autoimmune diseases, because you have to do like the chemical reducing load, detoxifying, adding things that are enriching your thyroid. It's not one thing. It's not one thing. It's so hard and everyone's journey is so different. So if I
Yeah.
wrote it down and gave somebody else, try this, it might not work for them. So that's why it's so hard to
Yes.
you just have to be on your own lane, and you can tell people and you know, they can take some of it, but it's such a hard one because we're all in our lanes looking over going, well, how did you do that? And you just have to kind of stay in your lane.
That is so true.
And everyone's almost like going to crash into each other, but that's why we have this podcast. It's just to kind of like share stuff that we do and navigating it. We haven't reached any conclusions or anything like that, and we're just sharing it. That's all we can do. It's and if some people choose different, like they don't want to do what we do, like functional medicine or holistically heal, that's fine too. They're in their lane. Everyone's in their lane, and it's okay. That's all I want to say. Like, it's okay. And I have to say that these topics that we're talking about, the emotional, chemical, and physical stresses, has been amazing for me. It has been amazing for me to look back at my history. I have been adding to my timeline, like it's just growing, growing and growing. I'm like, oh yeah, and I did that. Oh yes, I remember when this thing happened. And it's just a nice way to like self-reflect, remember where you've been and how far you've come, see certain things like, oh my gosh, you know what, I used to do that and now I know better, but back then I used to drink that all the time, you know. And it's just so good. I'm so excited for this episode. But you know, this I just hope everything that we're saying is just helping somebody out there, and one tiny little crumb can help somebody. That's all we're trying to do, is opening up and sharing. And
and if you're someone that, you know, you're like that post that's like, well, F you, you know, to anyone who's saying, I've been where you've been, where I've had family members and friends who are meaning well just say something that's really rude. You know, it just the intention behind it 99.9% of the time is not to hurt your feelings or to be rude. It's just that that's why we want to do a podcast on how to help people help you or help understand you, because family and friends, they mean well, but sometimes they can say things that are just rude because they don't understand what exactly how you're feeling or what you're going through. So I get it. And if you're hearing this and you're that person that you just feel like this is genetic, this happened to me, that's fine. You're allowed to work with your doctor and allowed to deal with your chronic illness the best way that you feel is you need to, that's best for you. Our message is just for like you described, just recording a health history. Doctors need a health history too. So it's not a blame game. It's just acknowledging events and stressors in your life that could have contributed to your autoimmune disease so that you can have a better understanding and potentially make better decisions for yourself when it comes to treating it. That's it. So it's not a blame game, because I do feel that there is this unspoken tone where, like you were saying, describing everybody in their lane, but we're like, everybody's looking over, or they're feeling like, well, why is she healing naturally and I'm over here doing X, Y, and Z and it's not happening? And it just, there's this unspokenness that occurs of just like maybe feeling blame, like a blame, like I'm doing either something, like people either feel like they're doing something wrong,
right or wrong. It's not a right or wrong thing, is it? It's not a
it is not a right or wrong. It's not a blame game. No, but I was like internally like having a parade when you were describing how you keep adding onto your health history and you're having these like awe moments, because that was exactly how I felt after I learned about Dr. Bergman's principles, you know, to reduce physical, chemical, and emotional stressors. It just gave me this sense of empowerment of, okay, let me analyze and do this health timeline, this health history, and mark very distinguishable moments where I
Mhm.
can see it before and after, right?
Mhm.
There's a before this event and then an after this event. And that gave me so much clarity to know like how to tackle and implement certain lifestyle changes because they were very specific to those events. So I feel like that's exactly what you're describing. Like if right now someone were to ask you, well, how did you lose that weight? You implemented like so many new things. So you
Yeah.
couldn't pinpoint one of them. But most importantly, you were implementing things that were very specific to your needs.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it gets hard to explain it. And I think a lot of people still want like the magic pill treatment. You know, they think that you just found this one simple hack and it reversed it, or it's
Yeah.
making you feel better, but it's taking the edge off, but it's not. It's multiple things, and it's
Yeah.
multiple things that are very specific to the symptom that you're feeling and very specific to your health history.
Yeah.
So I love that because if you're listening, I really, really encourage you to go listen to our previous podcast, the emotional stressors and then the physical stressors, and start recording any emotional trauma events in your life. Also
Do a
just
timeline.
emotional
Yes.
defense. Yeah, do the timeline
Mm.
because you're going to be going through these moments like, you know, Miran just explained and I've had, and then you're going to start understanding what holistic treatments or remedies you can like implement to help
Yeah.
you with those specific stressors that you've had in your life. But
Yeah. And lastly, just before we go into the chemical stressors, is I think that by doing these health histories, they always say it's better to prevent than cure. Curing is so much harder to do. When you're in it, it's so much harder. It's much easier to prevent and not go into it. So we're raising awareness of maybe things that you can like not when I have kids, God willing, I will be able to advise them so much more because I have that, you know, awareness or guidance like of that's not going to be good for you. I'm going to tell them to learn about their bodies. I'm going to tell them to implement self-care from a young age so that they have that habit of looking after themselves. I'm learning to look after myself in my 30s. And when I do these health histories, I'm like, I didn't do any of it, not even a crumb of looking after myself. But it was that lack of awareness. And so I'm hoping that this just sheds light and awareness going forward for the different generations, because I just don't living a life of chronic illness is not an option. That is what I keep saying. It cannot be. It can't be this epidemic that's just seeping all over. I think it's like 700 million people worldwide. I saw that stat recently. Live with autoimmune disease. No. We need to shout out. We need to join the dots. We need to just all of us have a closer look. Not just leave it to the health professionals, but ourselves. Take it in your hands. Take your own journey in your hands, and then you can help future generations. So that's what I'm hoping for these podcasts. That's all we're trying to do.
That's perfectly said. We're awareness. That's all it is, being self-aware. How many things did we do where it's just like when you have more clarity, even in like just growing up, there's so many things that I wouldn't do that I did when I was 15. Hello. It's just it's called experience. It's just called self-awareness, understand, you know, all those kind of things. We are maturing at I would say would it be maturing in our health, with our health? Like we're understanding that there's more to it than just going to the doctor when you're not feeling well. So that's it. We're just growing in our maturity with understanding our own body, our own accountability, what we can do with it, and being responsible for you know what we can do, being responsible for the basics. So
focus on what we can do. Focus on what we can do. Yeah, that's it. Just focus on what you can do right now, and that's it. So
and that doesn't mean that you can't you know, do conventional treatments, right? You can still work on your health and understanding your health And if you still feel like this is happening to you and you don't understand and you really are inclining to do a treatment, that's fine. I just think that it's so important in general just to become more aware of your health, to learn about your health, to learn about your body, how things interact with it, like the emotional stressors, the physical stressors. And then today we're going to talk about the chemical stressors. But yeah, you have to have that desire and that will. But
yeah, because just to add, well, no, there's just so much to say.
no,
Like the epinephrine. I mean, if I wasn't telling you my history of things and my history of allergies and stuff like that, I wouldn't have known about like epinephrine. I didn't know about that. And now going forward, if if I have like a dental thing that I need done or whatever, I can put my hand up and say, I've got Graves' disease. I don't think that, having that is going to help me because I know now. So it's just, just learning about you so that you can be more empowered going forward.
Yes.
That's all it is. Yeah.
To add, we're just like jumping and adding on to each other, but we do talk about how health is a very personalized, our health and our healing is going to be so personalized. But one thing that Miron and I are discovering, and I've discovered with many other women who I've had chat with, there are these fundamental truths that are root cause triggers to hyperthyroidism and Graves. So as we are learning about those connections, we are sharing them. Epinephrine is one of them. Dental care is another. Like dental, because epinephrine, the exposure to that.
Dental trauma.
And then, yeah. And then, but like those are things that I feel like are, no matter what our physiology is, it's going to be a potential root cause trigger. If I feel confidently saying that most women who are diagnosed with Graves have had some type of epinephrine exposure, whether it's from dental or maybe an epidural. But we are still exploring this topic. But yeah, anyways,
we can put it in the poll. That's a good question for people to answer. I'll put it in the Spotify poll. Please answer these polls. That would be great if you can answer the polls, because it helps us to just again magnify it and just create a movement almost. Please, have you previously had an epinephrine injection? Is it different things like for your teeth? It can be epidural.
From what I understand, epinephrine is normally found in anesthesia.
Okay.
So I'm assuming it would be epidurals as well. It would be dental anesthesia and also the EpiPen, right? That has epinephrine in it. So those are the three main exposures that at least I understand so far today. And we want to bring awareness to you guys. We want to connect these dots. And if we're noticing that, like, let's say 100% of our listeners are saying, I've had numbing to me during dental or an epidural or an EpiPen exposure. Can you imagine if 100% got back to us? Like that would be something to add on to a root cause trigger without a doubt,
Help us.
But
do the poll. I'll put the poll
and the
up.
Community.
Please subscribe so that you don't miss an episode. Let this community grow. Let us raise our voices. And please put a 5-star review on Spotify if you're listening now.
That
review helps us to just keep this conversation going and let it be like louder and louder and louder. Help us. This is everyone in it together. We're all in this together. So this is Thyroid Sisters. Also gentlemen too, because I've seen in the stats that we have gentlemen listening to us too. So anybody within this chronic illness, autoimmune thyroid issues, let's all join in and we're all in it together.
Exactly. That's perfectly said. And we really appreciate the feedback too, because I know we've gotten some messages as well. I'm like, I want to share it so bad, but I'll just have to ask her. I can keep her anonymous, but it was that one girl who was saying that she was, if she felt that her gaslighting, that girl that was saying that she was gaslighting herself, but another thing she said, that it's been really hard to find people speaking about graves. So that's
true.
why,
Yeah.
yeah, that's why we did this podcast, because
That's why.
there isn't so much out there specifically on graves. So
Exactly.
yeah, just thank you for everybody who's been listening, supporting, liked,
Motivation
comment,
for
followed.
us.
Yeah,
Thank you so
we
much. It
really
means
appreciate
everything.
it.
It means everything. Keep them coming.
All right.
Whether it's DM,
Yeah, keep them
email,
coming.
any way you can reach us, send it.
Yes, and your messages, oh my gosh, like they make our day, you guys.
They make our day.
It's like
Absolutely
I'm always,
make our day.
if I'm reading one of the messages first, I'll like screenshot it and I'll send it to Miran right away, or
Yeah.
Miran will send me a screenshot, and we're just like, oh my god, it just like makes our day so much. And
Yeah.
because we relate to, we are you. If you're listening, like we are you too. Like we know what it is to be on both sides. So
Yeah,
it just feels really good.
So now draw up what I would say, if anyone is listening, if you want to pause it for a second, if you want to draw a timeline for yourself, just some quick bullet points of things in your past history where you think there might have been some chemical stressors, that'll be really good. Then you can join in along with us as we join the dots and we talk about our timelines.
Actually, I'll add to that. So if you're right now, you're wondering, like, don't even wonder what a chemical stressor. Add how many, make a list of all the products you use. Okay. Makeup, skincare, household cleaning products. I would say that those, like, if you get your nails done, if you get your hair done.
My timeline's different.
It's okay.
I love this.
That's
though. We're always different. It's always different.
That's why we're having this podcast, because I feel like I always just say reduce your physical, chemical, and emotional stressors, and I feel like people have a different understanding of what that means, and we're just adding on to that list. Like, what does physical stressors look like, emotional stressors, and today we're going to be talking what chemical stressors look like. But yeah, write down what Miran said. Any physical stressors. Or I'm sorry, chemical stressors, but also add on how many daily products you use, like self-care, skincare products, hair products. And then there's also make note of your cleaning products. If you have, what are they called? Air fresheners. It's just stuff that you buy for your home, stuff that you buy for yourself.
Interesting.
Kind of make a note of all of that.
This is why I learn a lot from these podcasts myself. So I have not got any of that on my list. I went down a different route, but you will see. You'll see the route I went down. No, I'm curious to see the route that you went down. Okay, right. Let's go. It's so interesting. I didn't even think about that. Okay, chemical stresses. Okay. Are you going by age? So you thinking like the first time something happened to you? Because that's what I've got down.
Yeah, you can go by age. Yeah, I don't have a specific order, but yeah, I have stuff from childhood. So
okay. Shall I start with my first one? But no, I'm not gonna I'm gonna break it in chunks of age. So between the ages of this and this, because there's like about 3 different chunks. So between the age of 9 and 12, because 14 is significant. This is why it's so good to do a health history. I saw so many things happen at the age of 14. So I'll do first the age of 8 to 12. I did think I had a nut allergy exposure. That's when I remember it first happening. It could have been before, but I remember around 8 or 9 because my parents had a cafe. So, and their number one selling product was a carrot cake, carrot and walnut cake. So they're baking that a lot. So I was around walnuts all the time, touching them, eating it, whatever. So I noticed then about my nut allergy. I used to also swim every week. At 9 years old, if you listen to the physical stresses, I sliced my hand, and I was on a whole bunch of medication, a whole bunch of antibiotics for a long period of time. And then that same hand injury at the age of 12 came back again. I had to go back into surgery. Bless you.
Sorry.
Bless you. I had to bless you.
Okay, I'm sorry.
That's all right. The hand injury came back again at the age of 12, so I was back on all the medication again, all the antibiotics again, and then that's from the age of 12 onwards is when I started to feel like I had now what I know now as IBS symptoms. So that's the first part of my journey, and then 14 onwards is different.
Okay.
So that's where I'll start off with.
So for me, I want to say the early chemical exposures were chlorine, because for many reasons, my mom cleaned a lot with bleach. It's just something that was economical and very common to use to just clean everything with, whether she would dilute it a little bit or she would use bleach, chlorine to clean. And second was swimming pool. So I grew up in Huntington Beach, on the West Coast. We would go to the beach all the time, but if we couldn't go to the beach, I was at my community pool. So I was always in the pool. I want to say that time frame would be under maybe 11 and under. And the only those were the chemical exposures that I understand that I had. And the only symptom that I got from that was by 11. So the earliest that I was going to the pool was 5. So by 11, I had developed a sensitivity in time that I was going to the pool. My eyes were turning red and I would sneeze. I didn't know that it was from the chlorine, but I just knew at that point that I would just get very sneezy and my eyes would itch a lot. But that was just about it. So by 11, I had developed that irritation.
I have that now. I didn't even know that was a thing. When I go to the sauna, when I was going to the gym, not to use a sauna, I went to the gym. I should have used it for working out, but I would just use it for like the sauna and stuff. And I'd lay in the jacuzzi, and my eyes would burn. I'd be like, I'm not enjoying this jacuzzi. But I know they use a lot of chlorine, and I'm like, that's not good. So my eyes would be red and itchy. So when you said that, I didn't realize that was I'm reacting, maybe. Okay.
I didn't know. I mean, I know that that's what it is now. Well, I guess I should share my next event, because at 14, and I shared this in our YouTube video, that we did, was I had a mandatory swim class that I had to do in high school. So that was a much bigger pool. And I understood, like now that I'm thinking back, I did understand that it was the chlorine that would make me itchy, because I remember being very, hesitant on doing that, going into the pool. I just didn't want to deal with like the itchiness and sneezing. But because it was mandatory, I just, I did it. I was trying to get out of it, and I just went and I did it. I didn't think it was going to be anything bad, but that one exposure after I had jumped in, the class was less than an hour. The following day, I was like covered from bumps from head to toe. I had this whole reaction to my body from the chlorine.
Did you know it then as an allergy? Did you put that label to it, like an allergic reaction?
I was like, I'm just allergic to it. Yeah.
Oh,
but
that's really good.
Chlorine is one of those things that everybody is sensitive to it. It's a very strong chemical, right? But my tolerance for it is a lot less than maybe what the average person can tolerate from that exposure, or from whatever's the safe exposure. I don't even know, but
Well, it's like my nuts. It's everybody. I see people love walnuts, and I just look at them eating it, going, "How does that not affect you?" Obviously, because I'm so used to it affecting me, right? But even as at a young age, maybe that constant exposure to it, maybe the lack of not having the language that I was young, because I didn't have the language to say like, this thing is hurting me. I would just keep quiet about it and just carry on doing it. So over time, your body is building that to the point now. Yeah, if I don't,
histamines.
now it's deadly. Before it wasn't deadly. It was just like itchy and burny, but you're just a kid. You just don't know what to say, or
Wow.
you don't have the language to be like, you don't even attribute it to that. I mean, I don't think I even joined the dots at that age.
No,
Really.
you can't.
It
Yeah.
took me a while before I was like cutting, like, you know, breaking them in my hands and going, I don't feel, you're just 9 years old, you know, 10 years old. You're just like, something's not right. So like you, it's that everyone has different tolerances, right? So I must have just been a little bit allergic to walnuts from a very young age, but didn't know it, and then just added to it. And then you also used to keep going swimming until it became the whole body, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. And I do remember my mood seemed to change a lot after that exposure too.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just a lot going on during those years. I know in our emotional episode, we didn't go into like traumas that we went through. We just kind of talked about how we dealt with the traumas. But I would say that I had very big, significant emotional trauma events that occurred during my high school years, like 14 to 16 or 17.
Right.
So on top of these chemical
I get that.
exposure, I had these events. So I noticed on top of like having that chlorine reaction, I wasn't going out as much. So I wasn't spending as many days out in the beach like I used to. I just kind of was more indoors more. Yeah.
Was it the peer thing, the peer issues that you mentioned in the emotional?
That was just like the peer was just more of an annoyance thing that occurred. It wasn't so much, you know what I mean? Like it wasn't trauma. I mean, to say it without naming names, I had a close friend that it's so funny I have a hard time talking about it. I had a close friend that attempted suicide, and I walked in. So I went through that event of helping them, and they overdosed in some pills. I was like helping them throw up and calling for help. So that during that time, it was like there was just the emotional stress really like came on hard. You know, things at home also, like family, it was like, you know, regular, like I don't want to say regular, but typical, you know, family stuff going on that isn't healthy. Don't say isn't healthy. You know, like I don't know. It's just
it's not good for you in any sense of the word to be in any kind of trauma at that age. So
yeah, I felt like we were left
definitely
alone to kind of deal with things a lot. So because parents are just busy with their own things. So it was just
emotional
like
support. Not that much emotional support. Not that much support to navigate what you're feeling and what you're going through. You just have to swallow it. Next thing, swallow it. Next thing, swallow it. Right?
Yes.
Yes, me too. Yeah, I get that.
Yeah, for sure. So I feel like shortly after that was that event, and that's when a lot of like my extracurricular activities just kind of, you know, the world got dark for me.
What age was that again? 14 or 15?
15.
Oh my goodness gracious. Me too. Oh my gosh. We link again, Priscilla. We link again.
So that for me, so on top of chemical exposures too, I was dyeing my hair a lot during that time too. I think I first started to dye my hair like, and I wasn't always coloring it, but I always, you know, as a young kid, you always want to experiment different looks and hair. But yeah, definitely by high school, I think at 14 as well, like borderline 14 to 15, I decided to experiment on my own hair and try to do highlights. It looked so bad. It was so bad.
I've done that.
My dad, I remember feeling so sad, and my dad was like, because my mom, she wasn't into all those girly things, and neither, you know, but I feel like she my mom was just telling me, don't do it, just don't dye your hair, you know, and I would be like, I'm doing it anyways, and I would go get my hair dye, and I was like dyeing my own hair, and at the end it looked so bad. And I remember my dad was really, you know, really compassionate, because he was like, okay, he's like, come on, I'm going to take you to get it fixed. And we went to the hair salon, and I showed up and my hair was orange. It was just really bad. And the guy just kind of laughed, and he just went and fixed my hair. So I you know, I went through like a lot of hair dyes. And then even like up until all throughout high school and like up to my early 20s, I would probably dye my hair like maybe like jet black, or I think in my early 20s I tried highlights again. But yeah, I feel like during that time I was coloring my hair on and off.
Is that 15, 16?
Like, yeah. Did I do it when I was younger? Maybe at like 12 or 13, I might have done a little bit too. But yeah, that would be another thing that I was.
That's really heavy. I'm glad that you spoke about like the deep traumas that you went through around that age, even though we did the emotional stresses episode, and it's interesting how different things come up. So then it was a different things that we spoke about, and now it's like it's just surfacing like deep rooted things. But I think it's important to highlight it in case anybody else listening resonates with that around that age. It's such a, not a messy age, but it's an age of confusion, and it's just feeling lost. It's easy to feel so lost and lonely. I'm getting emotional. Oh God, I did not expect this.
I know it's I always felt like I can sympathize even to this day with that high school age, maybe because for me, I experienced like the world really changed to me. Well, I was starting to understand, you know, that kid-like mentality of what the world is started to kind of like, it's not all rainbows and butterflies, started to kind of like disappear around 12 for me, because we had another family event, and then or we had a family event that just kind of like, you know, disrupted the peace, and then that brought a lot of awareness of like, oh, this stuff can occur, you know, like it. And then again in high school, that was another moment of like the reality of the world we live in. It's not, like I was saying, like rainbows and butterflies. That childlike view of the world was just crumbling a little bit for me, you know. And what I think it's really, really rough for that age is that you understand, we have like high school age kids, we know how the world, like, we get it. Our comprehension of how things function, and you know, there's good and bad, we get it. Like we can grasp those concepts. What we lack, though, what that age group lacks, is just the experience. You don't know all the experience of in depth, or how in depth these abstract viewpoints can be. They can be so much more complex. Even though you can grasp it, you lack the experience to really know how deep it can get. Yeah. So it's very hard. And that's why I think with that age group, the high school age group, you really gotta give them a little more credit, you know, like, but at the same time, it can still be a shock, you know, like of just how dark the world can be, and situations can be, and you know, there's a lot of suffering that's occurring, and yeah.
Well, I can only imagine how much worse it's got now, because mental health is rife. I mean, maybe it was just as bad back then, but nobody talked about it at that age group, I mean. But it's definitely an age, I don't know if anybody else resonates, but like you can definitely feel so alone. You can feel so alone. And then when you are in that space then you can harm, do detrimental things to yourself. It can be very harming. Oh Lord, that is you just reminded me things I haven't thought about. It's not on my list. It's not on my timeline. And these episodes, you never know what's gonna get you.
I know.
Oh God.
I know. I think that's why this healing journey is something that you can only do for yourself, because you're going to be reminded of very unpleasant experiences, or experiences that were life altering, and it's not to like make you feel stuck, or feel bad, but it's important to, I think, acknowledge it. I think it's important to say, this occurred, this is how I felt, and this is how it changed me. Because sometimes the way that it changed you could be a form that it is contributed to your autoimmune disease. Like that event for me changed me. It made me not want to interact with people. I wanted to, not just spend, I don't know, it isolated me a bit.
Did you talk to anybody about it? The one with when you saw your friend? Did you?
I mean, my parents knew and everything about it, and
did you
I
just
mean, did I
move
go
on without?
Yeah.
Really? Oh.
Yeah. My friends survived, but otherwise it probably would have been a different experience. But yeah, it was just yeah, I think it was just one of those things that it was acknowledged happened, but then it was like you just move on, and
no time to process it.
Yeah, because I do remember in my early 20s, I was like, I noticed I was still processing it. Like I felt a lot of anger. I remember feeling, I felt anger because to me, it was just like, you're so selfish.
Is it because she would have robbed you of like a friend? Like she would, then the impact of that would have impacted you.
I cared for you. Like you were my friend. Like, don't I matter to your work, to your life? Like, don't you care about me? I care about you.
No, I think when you reach that level of suicidal thinking, you've got to that point because you don't think people care about you. You don't think you matter. You're numb to it. If somebody says it, I mean, there's reasons why you've reached that point where you're like, I don't want to be here anymore. And it's I guess on the other end, you can definitely see it as, how could they do that? We care, I'm here, and all the devastation that you would cause. But you're not thinking that you're so in that dark space that you can't see the light. There is no light at that point. There's zero light. So you're not aware of that. You're not aware of that at all. So it's
that's why for me, like depression is such like a word that I feel like it's overused all the time. And I'm just like, it's not that. Like if you're just having a sad, bad day or a week, I don't know. I feel like it makes me just feel very overprotective in a weird way, because I think a lot of people who are really, really depressed, they're not the ones saying that they're depressed. They're not saying, hi, I'm depressed. I need a mental day. I need a mental health day. They don't talk. They don't speak up. They hide. I kind of feel like my exposure to it, it's actually more, I don't know if the word is shame. I don't know what it is, but it's not to speak up. They're not announcing to the world that they need a mental health day. They're not announcing to the world that they're depressed. They are self-harming themselves.
They are self-harming. They quietly,
they don't need an audience. They are isolating. They're hiding. They're not, it's so, and it's difficult because I personally felt like this friend, like we were very, very close. So I remember being there all the time and understanding like that there was something obviously wrong, like I know that she wasn't feeling okay. So it made me more like sensitive to her. So I wanted to be there more around her, and thank God, because, you know, that was the day that I was there. I happened to be there. But yeah, it's a very selfish thing when you're constantly allowing yourself to stew in these negative thoughts, because they block you from seeing what's right in front of you, and what's right in front of you are literally people who care and love you. But if you're just looking down saying, no, I'm going to stew, and no, you don't understand me, nobody understands me, and blah blah blah, you're blocking that. And that's why I think when I was later, I was like, just not that I'm angry about it, I just needed to say it. Like it was yeah, I needed to say it. Like, how dare you? I was there, and I did love you, and
Is it because you were there because because you said to have those thoughts is really selfish, and I think it's still because you were there. Were you there the whole time? Were there times when she was completely alone?
Yeah, there's a lot of events where, you know, I knew that she was self-harming herself. So I was very invested in her well-being. Not that she owed me anything, but like I made sure that I was visiting her and seeing her, that she wasn't, even if we weren't really doing anything, to be honest, just because the level of her self-harm was so severe, and it could be different on certain days. Oh, I'm feeling, my stomach is feeling like butterflies. But
It's that feeling. Because what I'm thinking is that for a long period of time, she felt in such a dark place. She couldn't receive it. She can't. If you're left for a long, it could be from a very young age. You don't even realize it because you don't have the vocabulary at that point. It could be from a very young age where you already feel abandoned, and then it just piles up. So by the time somebody helps you later on, you can't receive it because for too long you've been in a dark place. So I get it. I understand it. I understand it a lot. I used to self-harm as well. And it was a friend that said, don't you dare ever do that again. And I said, okay. And I didn't. But I did used to do things like bulimic, when you make yourself throw up. So it's like you start to harm yourself. I've done those. I know what it's like to be in a very dark.
And my friend did that too. She was
see, it all adds together. It all adds together, and then ultimately you go down that road of suicide. But it's at that age. So it's interesting that we're talking about the timeline, because everything compounds. So if you already have like all these chemical stresses on top of that, you've compounded it with these heavy detrimental actions towards your body, towards your mind, towards your everything. Then it's just it's at an age where you've started your periods. It could be your body's changing, hormonal things are coming in. So on top of that, chemical stresses, physical stresses, emotional stresses, at that age, and seeking zero help and just carrying on with life, and then continuing on to 17, 18, 19, 20. And then so that's why it's important that we're talking about it, just to raise awareness of things that could have compounded you at different ages. Deep.
And it's interesting too, because this is our last stressor, that subject, the stressor that we're talking about, the chemical stressor. We already talked about the emotional and the physical. Like, I just can't help to connect the whole timeline. Now I'm realizing, okay,
absolutely.
We talked about the emotional and the physical, and now I'm mentioning the chemical, but that happened around the same time of this emotional trauma. And also at 14, that's when I had my knee, my physical trauma, where I fell off the quad.
Yes. Yeah, you said, yeah.
And I hurt my right knee. That was,
or was it?
I was, yeah, it was in Baja, Mexico. We were vacationing there with my family, and my dad and I are riding on these quad motorcycle bikes on the sand, and they had a little sand. If you heard I'll just say the story, but they had like this sand hill, and we were going up and down it, and I was just too close to the edge on one of the times I went up, and it fell off the edge of that hill, and I went flying. I landed in the sand.
Which is good. but not
yeah,
good.
but I felt like the impact was all on my right knee because I couldn't walk after that. But that literally happened at 14. So I had that chemical stressor of chlorine reaching its all-time high, where I just broke out in bumps and was out for a week. And then either later that year, I can't remember if it came before or after that, was my knee injury. And then the following year was that emotional trauma that occurred, or a stressor. And then but you mentioned something that that goes with your chemical balance, I guess, or chemical health. Because chemical is not just like external chemicals, like your hormones are chemical messengers as well. And that was your period. So I was actually really young when I got my period. I was 10.
Oh, right. Okay.
So I got my period at 10, and then I was still going to pools, being exposed to the swimming pool. And then just I don't know why maybe that's
it matters because
yeah.
I didn't have I started late. So maybe that could have impacted the whole sensitivity to chlorine, because your hormones are just, it's like you're developing. There's so much going on inside of you that you're not aware of. So it matters definitely to pinpoint that. Yeah. Add it on. I didn't add it, but on my
I didn't think
matters.
to add it either, but
that's when changes
if you're
happen.
Female, I mean, if you're listening to this, I think it's important to note when you started puberty or when you started your period, because that's all hormones. Okay. And hormones are chemicals. They're chemical messengers to your body.
Yeah.
So, and then,
but I did add it, actually. Well done, me. Yeah, I did add it.
Cool.
Hormonal changes began at 14. I told you 14 brings about a lot of stuff. 14, 15 is like so already the other stuff that I mentioned, I think to be started on to have a severe surgery on your hand at such a young age and be on so much medication, like 9, just little thing. And then to have that happen again at 12, and then 14, braces. So whole lot of metal. And then after that I started to have like sinus issues, always sneezing, always blowing my nose. I remember in school they would wait, they knew that I was gonna sneeze in class. Like it was just, when's Maren gonna sneeze? Yeah, I mean it was just a thing, like I was always gonna sneeze. And when I always had tissue, Meron and her tissues everywhere. I just leave a trail of tissues wherever I go, and I still do. I'm looking at my room now. It's really bad. But I didn't think anything, but I've had sinus issues for a long time.
Yeah.
It was around that time that I remember it.
It was around 14 or after your braces?
After the braces.
Okay.
I think after the braces. And I used to.
So when you got your braces, did you have did you have cavities done? Did you have numbing? Would that be also around the age that you had the epinephrine exposure?
I think so. Imagine, and I've already had like all that nut build up. Yeah. From 8, 9 years old, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, then all that teeth, all that happening in my dental area, and then having mercury fillings. Yeah, around that age, 14, 15, braces.
The mercury.
Hormonal check. That's when I started my period. I started binge eating, and I used to binge eat on, because parents had the cafe. I would binge eat on pastries a lot, and sweet, like donuts. Like sometimes have that for breakfast, and just binge eat, pick, and also drink. Yeah, just not eat healthy at all. At all. So it's just like all compiling. 14 was a lot of things that happened around that time. And then at 15, I had this really bad pain on my side. So I started to take a lot of ibuprofen, and then I checked to see what's the equivalent in America. I think it's naproxen. An Advil?
Or yeah, we have ibuprofen. It would be like
Okay,
our
just in case
Tylenol.
people are like,
Yeah.
what's that?
Yeah.
If it's
Yeah.
different. Yeah, I took a lot of it because I didn't realize that it was a posture problem. Because I used to have bad posture on top of everything else. Really bad. I used to do this. This is how I do my work, like slanted. From like
Leaning
a very young age.
on one side.
Deception.
You know, I used to do that too.
Yeah, so my body
I would sit
became
like this.
That's how I would sit. That's how I would
Mm.
sit from a very young age. So by the time I was 15, this excruciating. It was so bad. I had to just keep popping these pills until I went and they said it's a posture. So I had to do like physiotherapy at that age. But I took a lot of ibuprofen, I remember. And then 16 is when I had that tooth breakdown, like the mercury filling breakdown. So I'm just swallowing it. Do you know what? I wasn't even going to get checked or anything. There was a hole. Then the hole just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And then guess what? This is the one that I'm curious if everybody else has had this. I don't know because I'm the only one that had it in my family. At 16, I got mumps, mono. Is that known as mono in America?
Okay.
And Epstein Barr virus, basically. I don't know how I got it. I mean,
you can get. From sharing a drink, even.
It went around in school. It wasn't.
Yeah, I remember.
It's called a kissing disease or something, but I hadn't kissed anybody at that point. I don't know where on earth I got it from. It is horrible. It's horrible, and your face swells up to here. You look like Johnny Bravo, and you can't swallow. So this is what hurts the most. Your throat is so painful. It is the most painful thing. One of the most painful things I've experienced. You can't swallow. Everything's swollen. This bit is like this big. My family found it was funny to look at me because I just looked so weird, but it was really painful.
I don't want to laugh, but it just
like just this came out. It just swelled up, and they were like, "Yep, you got mumps." And apparently, it's only now that I did a test to see if I've got the Epstein Barr virus, and I do. But then 95% of people have it apparently, so it's like latent in your system.
Yeah,
it's there. Do you know what it does?
It's kind of dormant.
It's dormant. It's there. It changes DNA, and it stimulates your immune system. And I even saw something where it says it can cause autoimmune disorders like Graves' disease 10 years later. What age did I get mumps? 16.
15.
What age did I get Graves' disease? 26.
20. Wow. You see, those are one of those connections. Oh my gosh.
I wanted to tell you, I was there at like 1 a.m. last night. I couldn't sleep because I was doing all the adding to my timeline. I was like, I need to tell Priscilla. I was like, no, I'll wait until Wow. I've never seen something say specifically Graves' disease. Specifically.
You see, these are those awe moments right now that they're talking to you. It's telling you what direction you need to go. You need to address that right there.
Mm-hmm. Once
that's
it's there,
where you need to start.
You said you've never had it. You've never had mono.
Yeah, I've never had, even like when you were explaining the symptoms, I don't ever recall feeling anything like that. But leading up to my diagnosis, maybe like in my early 20s, I did start to get a lot of sinus infections. So on my timeline, okay, I got my period at 10. By 12, I got braces, so I was exposed to epinephrine numbing, mercury cavities as well. Yeah, because I don't remember going to the dentist and getting cavities before. And then 14 was the chemical between, all throughout my childhood, I had the pool exposure, the chlorine exposure. But by 14, I had my major outbreak of chlorine exposure. And then I used to sneeze, but I don't remember. I feel like my allergies in general got worse around 18 and 19. That's when I started to sneeze. Like I would have these sneeze attacks, like maybe 5 in a row, like going off, sneezing. And I would feel itchy in my eyes and my nose. So I don't know what was causing that, but around 18, I started to have that agitation. And then by 21, I moved over from California to Texas. And overall, I felt better. But then in my by my late 20s, I started to get a lot more sinus issues. Like I was waking up with a lot of phlegm, a lot of like stuffiness. And
That's
then
me all the time.
yeah. And then I got like what's it called? A couple bacterial infections in my throat. So I wasn't strep, but it was just some bacterial infection that was extremely painful. That's why when you're describing mono, but it never got swollen, but it felt like sharp, jagged knives.
Not everybody gets the symptoms. Not everybody has those kind of symptoms. It's worth checking. You never know.
Yeah, well, I did
interesting.
I did get swabbed, so they never told me it was mono. It was just a bacterial infection. One thing I forgot to mention as well was maybe at 16 or 17. Sorry, I can hear my son crying. At 16 or 17, I had a really bad ear infection. It was,
oh my God,
I don't recall what brought it, but it ran all down my jaw. My teeth were hurting.
Yes.
And I couldn't sleep. It was so painful. It was one of the worst pains I've had. And that's when I took ibuprofen as well. And I don't recall taking ibuprofen or medicine when I was a kid. But once I hit like my early 20s, I used to take ibuprofen all the time. Like, I mean, I felt like I'm saying all the time, but I used to take it like if I was going to go on an airplane, because I didn't want to get sick. I would always get sick. I started to notice that I was.
Me too. Did you have like all the tissue where you're just sneezing and just like phlegmy on the airplane? Me too.
I would just get sick. I don't know. I would just get sick easily. I would get sick anytime I went to I have family in Mexico. So when I was 17, I went to visit. My grandfather had passed away, but we went to go see him. He was already hospitalized at that point. But I got sick too. So just from like a change of environment made me sick. So I was always medicating with ibuprofen. If I was going anywhere new, I would just take an ibuprofen there in the plane because I didn't want to get sick. But that's like a first sign. I don't know.
Anyone else listening who has also taken a lot of ibuprofen? Because I know I've taken more than the average person.
Yeah.
Let's see.
It's just
circle that on our list.
Yeah, Tylenol. That would be Tylenol for me, for us here in the U.S. And I was so.
I mean, I don't know if you want to do a part 2, because I know that Rylan, he's ready for his mom. I can't
hear him crying now. They were walking outside and they came in. He sounds okay right now. I don't hear anything.
It's interesting because we're joining so many dots. I think it's worth everybody just checking if they have the Epstein Barr virus, just to know. I mean, if 95% of people have it, I don't quite understand it. Maybe some people are more susceptible to developing a chronic illness later on because of all these compounded things. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's good to just know.
Also, just let me pull up this this post that I have, because it kind of explains a little bit of things to make note of. But yeah, make note of any diagnosis that you've had. Let's see. Yeah, that's why for me, I felt like my childhood, I was like, didn't really experience getting sick, It
was in your teenage years?
Yeah. I noticed more when I was a teenager, but there was a lot of lifestyle factors that contributed to it, or like other emotional and physical stressors on top of the chemical And my biggest exposure was, well, dental, the epinephrine, that would be considered like medical, some type of medical physical stress.
I think it's chemical because it's epinephrine.
Yeah,
it's both.
Yeah, it's a little bit. Yeah, that one's both. It overlaps. There was something that you had said, and I was like, yeah, that was me too.
Well, the earache was me as well in my 20s, so that was
a lot of earaches.
Had ear problems.
And that depletes. Tylenol, I believe, ibuprofen depletes glutathione. So, which is like a master it depletes like this antioxidant, glutathione.
Oh, right.
Mm-hmm.
Is it the one that's called like L-glutamine, or is that something else?
That's something else. That's for your gut.
Okay.
L-glutamine is really good for your gut health. Glutathione is another one. It's a master antioxidant. It's so important for like,
oh my gosh,
for healing and
you need your antioxidants, of course. You don't need anything to diminish that.
Well, he's crying. He's back to crying. But I gotta think of what you had mentioned before. Oh, anyways, it'll come up to me.
The Epstein Barr.
But
the throat.
Gosh, I felt. Oh, and then also leaky gut. I developed a sensitivity to gluten in my late 30s as well.
When was that? Sorry, in what age?
My late 20s. So when I started to get a lot of so I started to actually, this is my late 20s and early 30s, but I started to deal with gut issues. I think you mentioned you developed IBS, or you started to have IBS?
I think I had that way back when, because I thought, at the age of like 12, 13, I think,
Yeah. So for me, digest. Oh yeah, I'm trying to think. When was my first antibiotic exposure? I can't even.
That's a good one.
It might have been. I think I was. Gosh, I need to ask my mom. I can't remember a kid taking antibiotics.
But I was 9. But okay, fine. It was major
because of
surgery,
your hand injury, right? I think for me, the first time that I'll have to ask my mom. I can't remember. The first time that I remember taking antibiotics was when I was an adult, and that was when after I started to experience. So I had my physical trauma with the car accident in my early 20s, and that's when I started to like my sinus and issues like really started to pick up. And then all of a sudden I developed leaky gut, which is basically IBS symptoms as well. So I had that gluten sensitivity by my late 20s. And then by like 30, up until my diagnosis, which was 33, I was getting like bacterial infections in my throat. I was that's when I remember taking antibiotics. And then the next year, again, I got the same time, it was the 1 year later, but around the same time, the first time I got another bacterial infection. So I was on antibiotics again. So it was like leading up to, my body was just deteriorating. And then I was diagnosed. And then when I took methimazole, it made my immune system even go down more, that I got sick again. And I went on antibiotics. So I went on antibiotics 3 years in a row.
That's the problem, is that they give you something to immediately suppress your immune system. That's like the first thing they do when they figure out you've got an autoimmune condition. And then after that is when you get all these symptoms and you gain weight. That's when I just blew 10 kilos in like 2 weeks. Ever heard of such a thing? But
I know
everything just changes after that.
I remember you'd mentioned emotionally eating. Yes. I started to do that after that emotional trauma trigger stressor.
Okay.
Around
14,
16. All of a sudden, because I was, around 16. You started
emotional eating. Mine was 14, 15, 16, yeah.
Because I want to say by my early 20s, I had gained weight. And I noticed that after 15, my weight kind of started to fluctuate a little bit more, you know? I remember the one good thing I did in high school was I actually started to work out. Like I joined a gym and I was doing strength training. I wish I would have, I wish I had more of a support. I really had this passion for I loved strength training. I mean, that
You
was just like the
do.
one thing that, oh yeah, that always made me feel good. I remember, because I would go every day at the same time, and there's this guy, he was this older guy who would always see me, and I was doing my my lat pull downs, and he goes, I remember this always stuck to me. He's just like, he was trying to get me more into it. He's like, you really enjoy strength training. He's like, I know it. Like you really enjoy it. You needed, he was like really trying to push me to take it a little more serious. Cause at that point I was just like, I'm just trying to lose weight. You know, I'm just trying to, I just saw it as like, yeah, but he was like, no, no. You're dedicated. You're coming every day. I'm seeing you. This is more than just like a weight loss. I wish I would have like hung on to that more.
My gosh,
and
like a different
life.
How
a different life. I do feel like God, I do see like God having those, I have those moments of that nudge, but as a kid, that's why it's so important to have support and have people encourage you, because it's so hard to get like sidetracked and stuff and to like continually like motivate yourself. But yeah, that was the one good thing I did in high school, but it lasted for like a year or two. And then after, it lasted for a little while, but then when I moved over to Texas,
you stopped.
I didn't have gyms that were nearby. Yeah, I didn't prioritize it as much. So my weight gain shot up more, food, I ate more, emotionally eating more went up. And I started to gain a lot more weight over here in Texas. So
I'm
definitely messes with your hormones.
I'm trying to think about the fluctuating of weight, because early 20s, I was fine. I was fine as a teenager. I could always be okay. But the fluctuation, it's always when people would come around the house and be like, oh, you've gained weight. You know, aunties, uncles, that's the first thing they say. So that's how I remember it. I'm trying to pinpoint what age that was. That was 21, 22, like 23, 24. So this is just like before I got diagnosed. It was going up and down. Sometimes big, then it was just like hormonally all over the place. If I think back now. And then I started to lose weight because I didn't realize I had undiagnosed Graves' disease. So I was like, oh, well, check this out. I was fluctuating. Now I'm losing the weight. This is great. And then you get diagnosed. Then they suppress your immune system. And then you balloon again. Yeah. And then since then, like I said, I've been trying to figure the weight out. It's been really tough.
Yeah. It is hard.
It's so hard.
Yeah.
So hard.
Another thing too, in my late 20s and early 30s, that's when my period I started to notice irregular periods. I was skipping months. My periods were getting shorter. They were starting to get heavier. So that was a big indication hormonally that something was off. So I always recommend. Yeah, I recommend if you're not tracking your period, track it. I remember my friend recommended this app because I was like telling her, just like from like our girl talk, I was like, man, my period's acting weird. You know, it's like, I was like, because I would never track it. And I was like, I'm pretty sure it's getting shorter. And she was like, you need to start tracking your period. And she recommended this app that I still use till this day called Clue. It's free to download, and but they also have like an upgraded version as well. But yeah, and I've been tracking my period ever since. It's one of the best things that I can recommend, because I never took birth control. And birth control is a big chemical stressor. And even now, as being married, I track my ovulation and everything naturally. So I'm not even on any type of contraception. I conceived Ryland, and I conceived Ryland using the FAM, the fertility awareness method, or this, there's also the cervical mucus method that I use. I kind of use both because my body just regulated after healing graves. Like you can see the signs of ovulation because you discharge, and that discharge changes consistency. So I didn't realize how important it would be for me to track my period, and how much it would help me be codependent off of like birth control and stuff like that once I was married, because I didn't have to worry about getting pregnant because I was tracking it all naturally. So I was able to,
I never tracked my periods, never. But it's only until somebody because I thought every woman has mood symptoms. I thought everybody goes through that, like really bad moods and the things like that. And then somebody said, no, that's PMS. I was like, yeah, doesn't everybody have that? No. I was like, oh my gosh. I Googled the symptoms. Like, oh, that's me. I've got PMS. I was like, I need to track so that's when I started tracking my periods. But I've never also taken contraceptives as well, because I saw my friends have like bad skin, moods, all this mess, and I was to me it was messy. Sorry for listening, but it was, and I was like, I'm not taking something. I'm not taking it. And
I had
no way.
Friends complain about it affecting their mood and not feeling themselves, so it never appealed to me too.
It never appealed to me as well. That's so interesting.
But it's such a big issue today, even with a lot of women not being able to get pregnant. So because they've been on it for so long. But another thing too, that my periods, not only were they being irregular and shorter, but I started to get hormonal breakout. I would always get this big zit, like right underneath my chin.
Everyone gets that, no?
No.
I always get a spot or two. That's how I know. Now I check if I feel a bit off. I'm like, oh, let me check my
That's how I kind of know hormonally when I'm doing okay, that I'm still okay, because I don't get breakouts prior to my periods. I mean, not that for me in my physiology and the way that my body responds, like that was clearly a sign of like a hormonal imbalance, because they weren't like external zits. It was like deep underneath the skin.
Got it. Yeah.
You know, it wasn't something externally that can just like pop and, you know, put something on it. It wasn't a blemish. It was like really deep, very
painful ones. The ones that hurt.
Cystics. They're called cystic zits. Yeah.
Are they painful?
Yeah, it would be painful.
Yes. Yeah. How I can tell is my mood. If I've been steady and then all of a sudden on my period, I'm like, oh, I don't remember getting annoyed. I wasn't that irritable. I'm like, my health, what I've been doing, eating, drinking, whatever, has been really good. That's how I know. And if it hasn't, if I will know, basically that time of the month will tell me. That's interesting. Another way to check in with yourself.
Your period could be a big indicator of your hormonal, it is your hormonal health. So, but just seeing, if you're not tracking it, you're not going to maybe catch all those irregularities. So I definitely recommend tracking it and getting very familiarized with your cycle, how much it's changing. Are you skipping months? Is it getting shorter? Is it painful? Are you getting zits? All those things.
Also, why it's so good is that if you know you're going to be on your coming to be on your period, you will start to feel like maybe more tired, more. So you'll know, right? I need to up my iron. I need to do extra self-care, or tell my husband. Well, he stays clear. He just steers clear, but he knows it's not me. It's not me. That's also good. So you can let other people know, and they're aware, and everybody's just happy, So it's just good. It is really good to track it. I don't know what I'd do without knowing that. It helps me know I'm not going crazy. Oh my God, is it? Before I think autoimmune. Oh no, I'm flaring up. It's a flare up. Then I'll check my app. Oh, I'm due in 2 days. Makes sense. And it's like,
for me. Same way. I'm so glad that I track it, because it just helps you just be more aware with planning and also just with like pregnancy health, pre-pregnancy health, preconception health. It's just so important to know all that stuff, like your cycle, how many days, your your period cycle, because not every woman has a 28-day cycle. I have a 30-day cycle, so that's important when it comes to conception.
I need to check that.
Yeah.
Plus, when you go to the doctors, this is what also they would all first question is, when was the last time you had your period? And it's like, I can't remember.
Yeah.
So it's like you don't know yourself. And it's interesting. I would be like, why did they ask that? Because it's so important, even for the doctor. Whatever you're going through, whenever you go to doctor, they always ask, okay, so you think, what's that linked to what I'm asking you about now? How is that linked? But it is very linked.
Yeah, it's all linked. I know in the beginning of the podcast or of this conversation, I had mentioned to try to track how many products you use. The reason being is that we just mentioned all these chemical stressors that we've been exposed to. Now that's just natural life, right? Things that just occurred. Now add on all those products that you use, because all of those products are they have endocrine disruptors. Okay. They are penetrating, being absorbed through your skin. Or even your personal hygiene products like pads and tampons were bleached with chlorine. That was one of the first things I discovered. Like I know I'm super sensitive to chlorine, and here I am using, pads that are bleached.
They got chlorine.
So
what do I use then? I need to check that one out.
So
I still use
one of the earlier things that I did once I discovered how chlorine was a big contributor to my chemical stress was make sure to use 100% cotton pads that are not made with bleach or not used, or they don't use bleach, and they'll say it. They'll have it there. It's become so much more popular. There's so many more options now that are out there that are, bleach free when it comes to personal hygiene stuff. But yeah, now imagine all these personal care items that you use and those chemicals and how they're impacting your body
on a day-to-day basis.
You know what? Let's do a part 2, and we'll go through that part of
yes, because when you mentioned it, I was like, I know something I did every day. But I didn't realize.
I mentioned a little bit about like hair dyeing my hair, but I think it was good that we did it the way we did. We kind of talked about the natural chemical stressors we endured, and then now we're adding the man-made chemical stressors,
brilliant,
or the products that go on top of that.
So this has been a huge topic yet again. It needs a part 2. So stay tuned for part 2.
Yeah, and thank you guys for listening. We're so happy you found us, and we hope to continue being a part of your healing journey, and just like, talking about things and experiences that maybe made you not feel validated, and now you're feeling validated. I think that's really important.
Absolutely.
That we have this space of like, we're still allowed to vent. You know what I mean?
Safe space. We're human. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Safe space for all of us. Thank you all so much. And I'm looking forward to part 2.
I know, me too.
Because I got a lot more on my list. I was like, oh my gosh, how am I going to fit? I don't want to rush through it. So
yeah, I don't want to rush. I love that. I know we're trying to wrap up and he's going berserk, but I really can tell, like, it's so interesting how now that we're doing chemical stressors, just to see your experience, like how you're like adding up to all of how you're connecting all the dots. Like I can see it in your brain where you're just you can see that glow, like that light bulb going off. It's so awesome, man.
And you as well, especially when I said the Epstein Barr virus, you're like, what?
Oh yeah.
It's all learning. Yeah.
Oh, that's good information. I don't think I've shared that on my account. We'll have to share that.
Yeah.
How that you found that connection, and that was linked to Graves' disease specifically.
Graves' disease. That is the end of this week's Thyroid Sisters Navigate Graves' Disease podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. We hope you found it useful and enjoyable. Please do follow and subscribe to our podcast so that you are the first to hear about new episodes.
And if you're enjoying them, please leave us a 5-star rating, as this will help us so much. The bigger the show gets, the bigger the awareness raised.
You can find us on social media using the handle @LovingMeKindly. and also the handle at healing_unapologetically. Until next time.